Hi everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand Extra. Yes, that's right, we are back with your little free fun-sized chunk of your Heart and Hand content for the week. This follows the main flagship show on a Monday. And a warm welcome back to the Extra show because due to our European campaigns towards the tail end of the season, we really didn't get an opportunity to speak to you on a Thursday. My name is Cammy Bell and I'm delighted to be joined for the season opener by, and they don't come much bigger than this, Mr. David Edgar.
Hello, everyone.
And Mr. Ian Hogg.
Good evening, mate. Are you well?
I'm very well, Hoggy. Thank you for asking. Bit rainy today, which obviously shows you've brought the rain back from Spain. I thought it was supposed to stay on the plane.
Yes. Let's not get into that rather sore subject because I'll end up down a politics line and then I'll get a red card.
Okay, that's fair enough. Right, I can understand that as well. Boys, just really, I can't put into words. I think it sounds a bit crazy.
That's a drawback on a podcast, Cam.
Well, yeah, of course it is, but I'm struggling to contextualise how excited I am about the season about to kick off. We're within very close touching distance of it. It's been coming for a long time with a period of uncertainty, which I think unprecedented in any of our lifetimes for sure. But how excited 0 to 10 are you for the season kicking off against Aberdeen at 12:30 on Saturday?
10, same as usual, getting Rangers back, it's going to be strange for a bit. It's going to be something that we're all going to have to get used to, and that includes the players. We don't really know, that's a kind of joker thrown in, that we don't really know how other teams, how our team, how anyone is going to react to it. And I think you can try and learn as much as you can from the pre-season matches, but it is different once the action gets going. I'm sure we've all been looking at other leagues and trying to see, does it affect the more away teams win, whatever, is the football more attacking, are there more goals or whatever. We also heard today that the 5 substitutes rule has been passed in Scotland as well, so that, does that factor in? Does that benefit the clubs that have the deeper squads, i.e. probably us and that lot? There's so many interesting things. It's going to be an intriguing season. Over and above that, there's the obvious pressure. We're not going to be allowed to forget about the fact that Celtic are going for title number 9 3/4. So I think that all of that is going to add up to being a pretty wild season. And again, the way that the season is compressed, Cammy, we're going to be playing kind of Saturday, Wednesday from now till May.
Yeah, we will. And I think that, Ian, as David has kind of touched on there, it's going to be really important for us, I think, to start off, I think, is a bit of a bizarre season. I mean, yes, it's been great to be able to see some games. We've obviously had the German games were the first ones to come back, and more recently, obviously, we've had the games down south. But for me, Ian, nothing takes the place of being able to see Rangers play, and I'm just really looking forward to getting back into what I think will be a strange opener, but it will feel like a bit of normality when the Bears come back.
Yeah, it's been, as you said, Cammy, just a period of really unprecedented nature certainly in the modern times, and football was off the agenda. Christ, we all loved German football when it came back, without really knowing the teams, I think. And it's been really a strange summer so far, because all we've done is watch football, really. And we've seen the odd Rangers game now over the past few weeks. And we've effectively gone from the English Premier League finishing one weekend and the Scottish League starting the following weekend. I'm not there yet. I'm not a 10 out of 10 looking forward to it yet, because it all feels so very strange. Come Saturday, of course, I'll be raring to go and nutting the lights. But yeah, it's been a strange transition, and I still look at it and still wonder, why the hell are we starting on August the 1st when we should have been playing out the season?
Yeah, of course, and I think it's an interesting point. I think David obviously mentioned, let's just say, a very controversial 9th title in a row delivered to Celtic through boardroom voting. So this time around, I think they're going to have to be able to prove it on the park, which I think for me, starting on Saturday, we have to put out a very early statement that Celtic will have to, unlike last season, earn this title to be delivered to them if that's what they're going to have to do. And the manager is going to have to understand that there will be a tremendous amount of focus on what we can do. And I suppose I'm curious to get your thoughts on, do you think Steven Gerrard fully appreciates that and this pressure that we'll be under to try and get a trophy, because he doesn't have any wiggle room any longer, I think, for a lot of the fans now? No,
Rangers managers that don't win a trophy, I was going to say, but even a title within their first 3 years don't last. It's a fact, and I think we all appreciate where we've been, but there does come a point where you think, right, we are ready to challenge now. In fact, to go further than challenge for Rangers, we need to reclaim our spot back at the top of the league, and this season is going to be loaded. There is going to be that extra pressure. I'm pretty sure, you'd hope that everyone connected with the club is aware of that. The fans will certainly let them know that's the case. I think that it is going to be strange because the transfer window is going to be open longer. That's going to be something that we have to deal with as a club in terms of incomings and outgoings. I think, that it goes on that bit longer, and that will provide a bit of unsettlement. But you've got to focus on the games. We know where we've gone wrong the last couple of years. Let's be honest. We as supporters know where we've gone wrong. 2 years in a row, but particularly last year, we just did not turn up after Christmas. Anyone can suggest there are reasons for it, and we all have our theories, but we can't argue that it happened. Rangers just didn't kick their own arse after Christmas. So that's unfortunately going to be a thing when we get to that stage of the season, that fans will have that concern in the back of their mind. Luckily, no winter break this year, so hopefully, we won't have a kind of post-Dubai lull. But, these are the questions that only the players can answer, Cammy. Only the management can answer. Everyone can speculate. Everyone can say they're 2 pence worth. But, we can't win the games. We can't be more consistent. We can't not throw away silly points in certain games. You look at the squad and it's talented enough. There's no doubt about that, I think. We could do with some more. The manager said it himself last week. But it's a squad that I think should be more than capable of winning the title. So with that in mind, now it's down to the players. The facilities are great. They get the backing of the fans. The season ticket sales are incredible. The backing that the fans have provided when they don't even know when they'll get in the stadium. Castore stick 50,000 strips up in a pre-sale and they're gone within 24 hours. It's all there for them, but they've got to go and do it. We can't do it for them.
Yeah, I think that's a massive point as well when you talk about the fans could have been aggrieved in terms of obviously not only just how the season was awarded and the various political ramifications, government level, SPFL level, we all know where that scenario is going to go to. But also, as you say, David, the downturn in terms of the performances and where we were at. And that's absolutely at our door. The accountability for the players has to be there. But in my opinion, the fans have really set the team up and the manager up for success with, as you say, not only the season ticket renewals, when I need to understand another fan base in the world that 40-odd thousand fans buy a long season ticket for at least half a season, where the likely suspicion is they will not be able to watch any of these games live. My Jails was launched across the back of that, and again a phenomenal uptake to that as well. We've obviously been able to support across various different avenues, as you say, within the strips being launched. That all will start to go into net with the away strip coming out on Saturday, which I'm certain will go through the roof in terms of sales as well. But at the same point, this is where the statement has to come on Saturday that we're really to set out with that. Now, focusing on that Aberdeen game for a second before we talk about our own squad and various things that have happened with that. Some news that's come out of Pittodrie within the last week or so is that Aberdeen will be missing both Sam Cosgrove and Curtis Main. That, I think, is a big blow for them. Think that's going to be a bit of a leveler in terms of a reduced strike force for Aberdeen against us.
Yeah, I think it could. In fact, there's no could about it. they're missing their main two front men. They're missing their talisman, Cosgrove up front. I'm a firm
Everything
believer.
goes through him, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
In their attack, everything goes through him.
And to be honest, Cammy, even with Cosgrove in the side, I've been very, very critical of us going up there and treating Aberdeen like Real Madrid. We should be going up there and treating them like Aberdeen. Yep, we go up there, we play our game, we roll all over the top of them, and then we come back down the road with 3 points. That's what I want as a marker. Cosgrove not being there and Curtis Main not being there means they'll play young kid Bruce Anderson up front. And I don't want Rangers to be complacent. I simply want us to go out, play our game, win the match, come down the road and put them back in their place.
See, here's what intrigues me about Saturday's game, is that we know that Aberdeen have been successful against us by parking the bus, especially in Glasgow over the last couple of years. Far more success than any of us would have expected or think is acceptable. But at home, their fans don't really allow them to do that. That's the game plan, sure, but the fans naturally want them on the attack, and I think some of the matches at Pittodrie, that they've done that, and they've actually been decent games. I think the 4-2 one there, where Jermaine Defoe clinched it late. There's no crowd there on Saturday, though. So will that be a factor, or will Aberdeen be more comfortable parking the bus that they usually do away from home? So that's something that we're going to have to factor in. It's a tight pitch. Will they have their two banks of four? They're not going to have that attacking threat against us that they normally do. But that doesn't mean that the back 10 won't be sitting there well organised and ready to go. Rangers, I think, are going to have to, as Hoggy says, get on the front foot, take command of the game. It's not going to be enough to try and kind of ease our way in. And, Aberdeen will be sitting there saying, have the ball. We don't need the ball. You have it, and see if you can break us down. And this is where we're going to need the front four, the creative players, to do exactly that.
Hoggy, I don't think that we could have had much better a pre-season build-up in terms of the number of friendlies that we've had. And as David alludes to there, we have scored goals. We have been tidy in terms of some of our play and obviously what we've been able to try and produce. Before we come on to one of the obvious points regarding, our strikers, we've got to go in there with confidence. And I think I enjoy exactly what Davey said there about the attitude being we have to put them in their place. I think that we have to not treat them with probably too much respect, but understand that we have to go up there. I think this is really about making a statement, and the players need to understand that it's about treating this game as we would any other game, rather than being too respectful of Aberdeen and as I say, not feeling as if that we're playing against an overinflated shower of egos. Derek McInnes knows that he can very easily motivate his Aberdeen players to play against us. Do we go into this now as right, okay, let's put 7 or 8 by them and let's really focus on being able to do it out there? Or would you say, right, let's go up there and get the 3 points? That's the main focus. It doesn't have to be a complete drubbing. Let's just get it and get back down the road.
3 points and come home. How that comes is, of course, we all want to go up there and score 7 goals. Of course we do. But 3 points is all that matters on Saturday. Pittodrie away is a hard fixture. But I go back to, we treat them with far too much respect at home and up there. 3 points, and if we can get a real good performance and a few goals off the back of it, then that's the bonus, Cammy.
David, within the last week, it has started to come out through various media outlets that Alfredo Morelos has agreed personal terms with French club Lille, with a potential transfer figure rumoured to be roughly between 12 to 14 million pounds. Now, Rangers have confirmed that there are no active discussions at the moment in terms of the potential sale. This does beg the question in terms of all of the various conversations which are happening around Alfie and what happens at this point. Right now, on the assumption that he is still a Rangers player, by the time that we get up to Aberdeen, do you play him?
That's a cracking question. The bigger question, I suppose, is does Steven Gerrard play him? And I think yes. short of Alfie saying I don't want to play, which I just can't see. He's just not like that. He's desperate to play football. We saw in the last friendly when he got taken off in a friendly that we were 2-0 up him. That he just loves playing football. So I think if fit then and here, then yeah, he'll absolutely play. I think Steven Gerrard will play him. I think he is the type that you could say, go out there and give me everything you've got. And he will. So I trust him in that regard. That I don't think he is a player that would be disinterested or not training to that level. If that was the case, you'd maybe expect the manager not to go with him. But I don't think that has been the situation. So no, I expect him to play. I think he should play if he's fit. Absolutely. The speculation. There's always speculation about him. This does seem more real than usual. This does seem a wee bit more. Real's not the right word. It's a bit stronger than interest. That's the word I'm after. That normally, clubs are interested in him, but I think in this case that Lille have just sold a couple of players. They clearly need to bring in a replacement. It's a signing that fits their model in terms of sell high, buy decent amount, and then try and sell on again at a much bigger fee. Alfie would be somebody you think fits that category. But again, if they're not going to pay the fee that Rangers want, then there is no deal to be done, and you would hope that that's been made clear to the player that this is how much you cost. If they can come up with that, then sure, go ahead. But until then, you're a Rangers player, and we expect you to remember. Alfie's our highest paid player. You're within your rights to say go out and earn your wage.
Ian, I think that David hits a point there in terms of that there is a dependency on him. However, as we just mentioned, towards the latter part of last season, when his goals dry up, I'm not going to say or criticise him in terms of saying performances because I don't think that's fair. But when we have one fit striker on the books, really, with obviously Jermaine Defoe's hamstring injury, ruling him out of Saturday's game pretty much, there is now an ask of the other players around them that they have to chip in with the goals, so that, let's say for theory's sake, Alfie stays, that we can't allow him to be a single point of failure if he doesn't have the best game, if he doesn't get the goals that he's needing to be able to try and do. So do we use Saturday as an opportunity to say, you guys need to understand that I'm expecting goals from the rest of you, go out there and get me some?
Well, we've seen it in the pre-season games that have been official. So I'm not including Hamilton, I'm not including Dundee United. Alfie scored against Hamilton, of course. But if you look at the other games, a couple of own goals, Hagi pops up with some, Defoe scores, Burjonis scores, Kent, Aribo, and Connor Golson gets in with a header for the final goal against Coventry. Those goals are starting to spread themselves through the team. That's one of the things that killed us last season, because Alfie went off the boil, goal scoring wise, and no one else stepped up. So I'm not particularly worried about where the goals come from, because you look at some of those guys that have clearly used lockdown to work on their physique, work on their power, work on their strength. Joe Aribo, I'm looking at you. You seem to come back like the Hulk. So I'm not particularly worried about where the goals come from. In terms of, does Morelos play? It's all hypothetical. It's all conjecture. I think if he's here, Steven Gerrard will play him. Undoubtedly, I think. Because he's our player, he's on our wages, and he's our talisman. So absolutely he should play. I'd flip I know it's driven from what happens if he gets injured and, you've got big money comes off the table. You could flip that the other way, Cammy, and say, what happens if Lille just start to look elsewhere? We don't play Alfie and we lose the game.
Mm.
Yeah, very true. Absolutely.
At the end of the day, the wage is being paid. He's our player, he's training, he's a professional footballer. I don't think it's in any way unreasonable. And I do get the whole... I'd only be pulling a player out ahead of a potential move if it was all done and dusted ever. That's the time to do it. But I don't think that it certainly doesn't appear to be that way at the moment that we're recording that. So no, I would play him. I do have a slight concern though, Cammy, about goals, not if Alfie goes, but in general, that Rangers have been far too reliant, I think, on our strikers, not just Alfie, but Jermaine Defoe. They're really the only ones who've weighed in with serious numbers in the last 2 years. And again, it's maybe just me, growing up, one of my favourite teams is the 2002-2003 team, where the goals seem to be spread all throughout the side. I think others do have to step up this year, yeah. I think that you need Aribo, Kent, Hadji to be contributing double figures. I think the midfielders could do. I'm not maybe expecting double figures from them, but I think that they could all be adding goals to their game. Even the central defenders. I always like central defenders to get a few goals. So, yeah, I think that there's a huge scope for improvement in goal scoring among the rest of the side. And I think that even if Alfredo was to stay and probably guarantee you that 25 to 30 goals in a season, I still want those figures from the other guys as well.
I think that's perfectly fair, yeah. I totally agree with that. Hoggy, David made mention earlier on about the manager's comments following the Coventry City game regarding expenditure for the squad, looking to be able to try and continue to expand. Now, obviously, we do have some new signings who have come in, and we've had a couple of, I think, quite strong performances out of a couple of them, at least so far, in terms of Calvin Bassey has now joined us. I've liked what I've seen out the back of him. You mentioned strong physical players like Joe Aribo coming back and looking a lot healthy. Calvin Bassey, I think, for me, a big player who certainly will, I think, enjoy the physical side of the Scottish game. John McLaughlin has come in as a replacement for Wes Foderingham, and I've been very impressed with him. Leon Balogun, we haven't seen too much of. He's not long come in the door. But in relation to some other transfer speculation which has happened currently, there has been an ongoing conversation regarding Bongani Zungu. Kemar Roof also seems to kind of be doing the rounds quite a bit as well. It's difficult to get any concerted information from Rangers regarding transfer signings. The Bassey one, I think, is a typical example that it just came out of nowhere. No one saw that coming down the line. From Zungu, Roof, any other players that we've been linked with, do you see any particular signings you'd like us to be able to try and make, even if it isn't necessarily those guys, or strikers that you'd like us to be able to come in? Because we are certainly at a critical point now in terms of striking cover, even if Alfie's here.
Well, even if Alfredo Morelos stays, we still need a third striker. We saw that last season when Camberry came in. Morelos goes, we're going to need two, minimum. I think we could do with better options in the middle of the park. You look at when allowed to, I think Ryan Jack has upped his game in terms of going forward. Glenn Kamara and Stephen Davis tend not to get forward, and that's back to the goals thing that you talked about, David. So I think we could do with better in the middle of the park, and if it's Zungu, then hopefully he fits the bill. Those are for me the two key areas. Then you look at our options, maybe in a kind of wider attacking sense. Brandon Barker seems to have realised he's a footballer in pre-season. Jimmy Murphy is back. And I just wonder if those guys are good enough to step in when required. Because, you look at some of the other signings. John McLaughlin, I think, has been very, very impressive and will probably push Alan McGregor. Balogun will probably play periodically. Calvin Bassey will come off the bench and play periodically. Yanis Hadji will play all the time. So we've made decent signings. Not entirely sure we've strengthened the squad per se. We've maybe stayed on par. And last season that wasn't good enough. So for me, we need to just strengthen those key areas. And for me, that's midfield and up front.
David, one thing that we again, as you say, just at time of recording, there had been a vote to incorporate the 5 substitutes rule. Now, just to be clear with that, there is 5 substitutes, which allows you to have 9 players on the bench, but with a maximum of 3 stoppages. So, yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. Hoggy makes a great point there in terms of the squad, and I personally feel that there's probably some elements where we will expect to see players going out the door. Whether that's by sale or loan. But with the 9 players on the bench and the option to choose 5, I think it's an opportunity for these players to say, your likelihood of involvement has now increased. So the odds are now stacked in your favour. So, and again, I think that you've seen some great performances from guys like Brandon Barker, which again, as I say, is encouraging, very surprising, but encouraging as well. We've also talked about guys like Nathan Patterson being able to try and come in, who I think again has done well in terms of the pre-season friendly so far. Some other players potentially like Jamie Murphy, who, if we get the opportunity to retain these players and we give them the emphasis that this is now a chance for you to be able to step up and be more involved, are you comfortable that we've got a squad that can be able to try and do that as consistently as we need them to do?
See, that's the difficulty because we haven't seen it from them so far. But it's early in the Rangers' career for a few of them. So, I mean, they're good players. They have ability. I do think Jamie Murphy still has a part to play, maybe not as a regular, maybe not as a starter even, but I think that he's intelligent, he's got good feet, he knows where the goal is, and I think that he's the type of guy that has that something a wee bit different for us that we haven't seen before. To be honest, in terms of your so-called fringe players, as I think that we might refer to them as, yeah, we need them to be good, but we need the first team, the 11. They've got to deliver. They haven't delivered consistently throughout the season yet, so that's the first thing to get right. But I suppose the argument is, if the manager doesn't feel that he's got players down the bench to turn to, and it would have appeared that way towards the end of last season. Well, what we saw at the end of last season, that changes weren't always forthcoming. That maybe he didn't always have that trust in them, that he had that core group of players that he would turn to regardless of loss of form, and there was a collective loss of form towards the end of last season. So I think that these players have got to be in a position where guys in the team know that any relaxation in standards and you're gone because there's a guy coming in that's burning it up in training, that's grabbing his opportunities when he gets game time. And if you're not doing it, then you'll be on the bench and these guys will be coming in. I think that's just part of any healthy squad. I don't think that's unique to us. Allied to that, I think that I'll be interested to see how these substitutions work for us, because it's certainly something I've been critical of the manager for in the past, that I think that sometimes these substitutions err on the side of caution a wee bit too much for me. Now you'll have that opportunity to, he's spoken before in games about didn't want to put a player on to, in case it upset the balance of the team. And I get that, but this is I think a positive for anyone who it dares with their substitutions and uses them. And occasionally it might come back and bite you in the backside. I get that, but I think that we should have a deeper squad than the other teams in the league. We should have options on the bench when we're struggling to break a side down, and I'm interested to see how the manager uses it, because there have been times in the past where I've thought I've not understood the substitutions or lack of substitutions. So I want to see how having these extra ones will, as you've seen, extra players, not extra opportunities. You've still got 3, but I do want to see how that develops.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Now, Ian, I put David in the spot earlier on about the selection of Alfredo Morelos. So all's fair in love and war, as they say. So I'll do the same thing with you. One of the things which has been a focal point in terms of our preparation for the season kicking off is the obvious injury to Niko Katic, and what that has then led to is a great involvement for George Edmondson against Coventry City. We also saw the return of Philip Helander, who has come back from a long-term injury as well. Who is your starting central defensive pair against Aberdeen?
Goldson and Edmondson. Given they've played together in all 4 of the pre-season friendlies, certainly the 2 games in France and the 2 recent games at Ibrox, I think they start. I'd be amazed if Helander's thrown in at Pittodrie. With or without Sam Cosgrove and all the rest of it, I just think that's too early. I think that's unfair on Helander to ask him to come into that game.
Yeah, Davey, I'm in agreement with that. I think we know that there's a definite player in Philip Helander, but I think most people forget that this is his first opportunity at football this year. nothing to do with COVID, but just purely because of recovery from injury. I think it's going to be interesting to be able to see as to how potentially Calvin Bassey comes into that, because there's a likelihood that he might either play left back or centre half. But I'll be honest with you, I've liked what I've seen from George Edmondson in the pre-season friendlies, and I've got quite a lot of time for him. I think that he's definitely got some strong capability in there. The Katic injury is a huge blow because he came back certainly looking in absolutely tremendous shape. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not I'm not necessarily too worried if George Edmondson starts alongside Connor Goldson.
No, me neither. I think he's a player. I think he's talented. He's raw, but we've always known that. And the management team have made that clear from the first day he arrived. That he's one for the future. But this is a big opportunity for him, isn't it, at the moment? And there is competition in there. When Philip Hellender's fit, I would probably have him in my first choice defence. Leon Balogun had rave reviews for his performances in the Championship last season. We haven't seen him yet. So there is competition there, but he's got the shirt, and that's all you can ask for going into the first game of the season, really. I like Edmondson. He's strong, he's quick. For a centre back, he needs to develop his positional sense. He's got to learn when to judgment, if you like, when to go and attack a ball and when it's maybe better to back off that yard. These are all things that come with experience. You can't graft ability onto somebody. They either have that or they don't, and he does. So I think it's a big season for him because I think he's got a real chance to lay down a marker and take that shot.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think I think he has shown part of that in terms of obviously the friendlies, and I think that his comfort level within being able to work with the ball and being able to try and move it forward and not collapse under pressure is. He works alongside Connor Goldson in quite a tidy manner, I think, Ian. I think it's fair to say that the two of them, you always want, and listen, all three of us certainly remember brilliant Rangers defensive partnerships, but you do want central defenders who communicate well and can work alongside each other. And I think there's a beginning of a fruition of a relationship developing between Connor Goldson and George Edmondson, which, again, like you say, I'm pretty comfortable with.
Yeah, Connor Goldson's going to play every game. He is the manager's boy at the back. I think he sees him as his number one central defender and he's leader at the back. So it's going to be between Helander, if he can get himself fit, Edmondson and Balogun for the other place. Katic, I don't think we'll see, certainly not until 2021. It's all there for George Edmondson right now. And let's face it, as a footballer, if you're not in the first 11, you're relying on one or two things happening, either form dropping off and therefore replacements are made, or someone gets injured. I'm not suggesting for a second George Edmondson wanted Niko Katic to get injured, but here he is, and he's in the squad. He's in the first team. He'll probably start on Saturday. As David says, he's got the shirt. It's now up to him. If he makes an arse of it, he'll be out, and Helander or Balogun will be in. So I'm fairly comfy with that.
Well, before we wrap up this week's extra, as we always like to do, I'll bother you both, please, for a score prediction. So, David, what do you think we will get on Saturday?
I'm calling confidently for a 2-0 for Rangers. For anyone starts.
Do you wish to expand further and give people their betting coupon and tell us who you think will score those goals?
Oh, I fancy Joe for one, at least. So I'll be going 2-0 and Joe for the first goal.
Okay, cool. Hoggy?
I'm going to go Aberdeen 0, Rangers 3. One from Ryan Jack, one from Joe Aribo, and Alfredo Morelos.
I genuinely thought you were going to say Brandon Barker for your last selection, and I would have said that's a major turnaround.
If he gets on, he'll score.
Yeah, I think he's got paced the bird now in terms of what we've seen with him so far. So, yeah, if he can leave some of the defenders for dead, he'll certainly create some chances. So, yes, absolutely. Now, listen, folks, just before we go, this is obviously your extra show for this week. And we will be coming back pretty regularly across the course of the domestic season because, as we've already discussed, the fixture schedule is going to be pretty ram-packed. However, if you'd like to be able to get more of our pay content, you can jump over to our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/heartandhand. where for as little as 50p a week, you'll be able to listen to a number of shows a day, including the daily update. David, we've also been very privileged this season to have you more closely involved in terms of being able to try and see Rangers firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely. We were able to report from the home games. Unfortunately, it's not down to the club whether we get into away games, but we did apply incidentally for Aberdeen folks. But in fairness, we always try to be fair on Heartland. Clubs are limited this season in the amount of press they're allowed in at the moment because of COVID. So fair play to Aberdeen. I understand why an admittedly openly Rangers supporting press person wouldn't necessarily be first on their list. But so we're able to go in it. And what all this basically means is that we're able to bring people reaction from press conferences that wee bit quicker. Tomorrow there's a press conference being held in the morning. Should feature the manager and a first team player, and there'll be a report up on that on Heart and Hand immediately after it's finished. And then Cammy, you will discuss it on the daily update show tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as we get back into the kind of regular season and stuff, we will make sure that we bring you loads and loads of content, reviews, opinions, everything else like that as well. So if you haven't already, please go over and join over 4,500 Rangers supporters on our Heart
Nearly 5.
Site as well. Nearly 5. We're getting close to 5. I didn't want to jinx it. You've just jinxed it. Well done. But yes, very close to, as David said, 5,000 bears on our Patreon site. Really enjoy that. Last thing for me to do is to thank our guests, which has been absolutely fantastic. And thank you for joining me for the launch of this season's extra show, Mr. David Edgar.
You'll be calling it Cammy's extra by the end of the season, won't you?
I'm extra enough. There's too much of me already. I need to lose some weight. I'm packing on the weight because of COVID and the fact that I feel as if I'm running out of Kit Kats, so I'm just eating them like a man possessed.
I don't think COVID's supposed to increase your weight, mate.
It shouldn't, but it is. And I'll say it's a lack of gyms. Even if the gyms were open, I probably wouldn't be going to them, so I can't even use that as an excuse. But yes, it's just what's going to happen. And someone who's already looking like as if he's lost some COVID weight and looking in a very healthy state. Thank you to Mr. Ian Hogg.
A pleasure as ever, brother.
Thank you, folks. Last thing as well, just to say is thank you to our executive producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Mr. Paul Myers. We'll be back with you on your flagship show on Monday, which will give you all of the update from the game against Aberdeen on Saturday. And as I say, if you want to be able to join us on our Patreon site, you'll get that far, far quicker as soon as the game pretty much finishes up on Saturday afternoon. Have a great weekend, folks. The Rangers are back. It's going to be the beginning of a fantastic season. And please enjoy it, and we'll speak to you all again next week. Thanks all.